Okay, here we go. Here we go. It is Sunday, August 25th, and it is about 9:20 a.m. I ended up not recording anymore on, if you've watched the last segment and the segment before that, both of those were shot on Friday. I was trying to get about 3 to 4 hours done, but ended up only getting about 2.5, or about 2-ish. The weather turned and it got just really scattered rain, wind, and a little bit of thunder, lightning. And it just wasn't really. At some point, I wasn't really feeling like talking anymore. I feel like when I talk for a long period of time, eventually my voice starts getting raspy. If you've noticed that in some of the videos after I've been speaking for a while, my voice sounds raspy, and it's like, Brandon, go get a drink of water or something. It's like I'm always aware of it when my voice is starting to crack and break a little bit. Um, there's plenty of stuff I could talk about as far as like what's current right now. What's happened in the last few days. There's all kinds of interesting things I'm observing, but at the same time, I don't really want to talk about all these different things that are happening day by day. As of yesterday and the day before and the day before that, like what different things that I'm experiencing and witnessing and tuning into as far as around here in Jackson, is with people that my intuition is telling me that they know exactly who I am, and they're just kind of introducing themselves, but anonymously, just kind of feel me out. And these are the type of things that I could spend half an hour talking about what's been going on in Jackson. Just in this last 2 weeks, since I've been sharing these most recent videos. As I keep sharing videos, I am noticing changes taking place around me, in the sense of it kind of seems like more and more and more people that I'm passing by, they're just kind of giving me like a friendly look. They're just kind of holding eye contact a little longer than what I've than normal, so to speak. And some people just give me a head nod or a smile. Some people can't seem to look away. It's just kind of like, if they've heard about me and learned about me and it's their first time ever seeing me in the real world, it makes sense for people kind of to hold their gaze, stare at me a little bit longer than normal. But it's not really a big thing. I'm just kind of acknowledging it. So if you're anybody in Jackson Hole and I'm mentioning this and you're someone who's seen me, I'm observing it. I don't take any offense of it. I don't take any offense when anybody stares at me a little bit longer than normal. And it's just funny, where I'm at right now. I just drove up here from Jackson, and my van's parked probably about 150 yards behind the camera. I'm kind of on like a little hillside, so you got this good view of the Teton Mountains behind me. But my vehicle's quite a ways away, so I had to hike across this grassy area. And there's a whole bunch of vehicles that have been showing up since I got here. There wasn't really any. I mean, there's people camping as I'm driving up, but there wasn't really any traffic on the road. But as soon as I park, it's just traffic coming up, and quite a bit of traffic. One guy drove all the way up here, and as soon as he made eye contact with me, he just did a U-turn and drove back down the hill. And then there's one van that was going by, and he was going really slow, and both the driver and the passenger, they're just staring at me the entire time. It's just something I'm observing. It's not a big deal. But yeah, it seems like the more I'm sharing, you can just imagine like a still pond, like a lake, say like a lake that's really calm, or a pond, and these videos that I'm sharing are metaphorically like throwing stones into the water, where, you know, say it's a clear water, you know, just really calm, like glass, and all of a sudden a stone hits the water and all the ripples are just going out in all directions, and it disrupts the clear surface. Metaphorically, as far as my interpretation and perspective, it seems like the more I'm sharing, it's just like I'm throwing really large stones into the water, and I'm just creating waves. You know, the more I share, it just seems like I'm creating waves. Butterfly effect, if you know what the butterfly effect is. It's the same. It's the same message, same meaning. But yeah, you know, that's kind of my intention. I know the further that I go in this story, especially once we start getting into Las Vegas, and then what happened around the time of my arrest, and when I start talking about my incarceration, and then when I start talking about everything that's happened in like the last year and a half, like as far as at my house in Central Oregon. When I start touching on certain subjects, there are people out in the world that do not want this story to be told. And I imagine, you know, from my perspective, I don't know what's happening out there as far as this war between good guys and bad guys. I don't know how heated up things have gotten. I don't know if there's just like if law enforcement, military are in full-on combat in different places of the world with this dark side. I don't have anybody giving me updates as far as how things are progressing. I'm only using my intuition based off experiences that I've been having in the last month and a half or so. But what I'm saying is that as I keep sharing all this stuff, I haven't heard, you know, I've said things about my family, and I've been out in the van for going on 7 weeks or so. I'm not really keeping tally on how long it's been. But it's going on about 7 weeks maybe. And I haven't heard from my family since I left. I talked to my mom for probably the first week and a half, you know, after I got out in the van, as far as texting her. I think I've spoken to her on the phone once. But that was about my first week and a half that we were talking. And then the last text messages I sent her, like she was telling me I told her, like, as I was making, as I was about to share a couple videos, I gave her a heads up before they went on YouTube. I told her what time they were going to go live, you know, what time she would be able to watch them on YouTube. And she was like begging me not to share them. And then I was like, it's too late, you know. I was like, your husband, my father, you know, it's what he did's unforgivable. Like, you know, I sent her this as a text, and I was like, it's too late. He's already laid out his intentions, and what he's done is unforgivable. And now I'm gonna share the story on YouTube and tell everybody. And my mom said that my dad was threatening to go to the police and have a restraining order filed against me if I proceeded forward with sharing these videos. And I literally texted her back and dared her. I was like, I dare, you know, I'm speaking about, talking to her about my father, and I was like, I dare him to go to the police. I dare him to report me. I like, whatever he thinks he can get away with, I dare him to try doing it. And then I told my mom, I was like, as far as I'm concerned, the police are already aware of everything. They already know what the situation is. And if he goes to law enforcement, you know, the Redmond Police Department or somebody, to report me for talking about him on YouTube, well, the first thing that law enforcement will probably do is they'll probably ask him, what am I talking about? Why? What is Brandon doing that you want to report? You know, what's the issue? And then he'll say all kinds of things, you know, whatever it is he says, I have no idea, but it's probably gonna be a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of lies, just try to make me look bad and make himself look like an innocent victim. But at some point, law enforcement is going to go to my YouTube channels if they haven't already watched it all, but they just might play along with acting. They might act ignorant or unknowing while they're talking to my father, Jerry. While they're talking to him, they just pretend that they have no idea, and then they might already be aware of everything. And then, say if he did try to file a report on me and police are already aware, who's to say that they don't just put him in handcuffs and haul him off right then and there, because they're just waiting for him to try it again. Because with what happened in 2019, that was a very unique situation where Redmond Police Department, all those officers who were there when I was arrested, my intuition and feeling was that all of them were put in very uncomfortable situations. I kind of felt like they knew what was going on, but given the circumstances of a whole bunch of different variables that were occurring outside of my situation, they were pretty much forced to put me in custody and haul me away. And even if they didn't want to, they had to do it, because if they didn't, then anybody who kind of resisted, anybody that refused to take orders, from my perspective, they would probably become the next victims. They would get the same type of treatment that I'm getting, if not worse. Any of those officers who have families, who's to say that their families, their lives weren't being threatened? There's very dark and evil, something very dark and evil had been taking place at that time, and I was very much aware of it. I was pretty much anticipating that I was going to get arrested at that time, and when I did get arrested, I didn't fight the Redmond Police, any of the officers who were there to arrest me. I pretty much surrendered. I allowed them to take me without any issue from me. I just willingly allowed them to do what they needed to do. Yeah, so as we get deeper into the story, you guys need to understand that I'm going to be telling the story from my perspective at that time, as far as what I was aware of and what I was not aware of. And I will do everything to explain why I was doing everything that I was over a long period of time, and why everything arrived to that current situation when I was arrested. There's going to be a lot for me to talk about as we're getting into this, and I guess overall, just be prepared. If you're law enforcement, you're military, understand some of the things that I'm sharing. At that time, I didn't know who I could trust. So what you're aware of as far as my past and things that I have said in the past through social media, speaking against military and law enforcement, if I rubbed people the wrong way, offended you, any of you guys in this occupation, if there were things in the past that I've said that offended you back then, I'm aware of that. But at the same time, I was playing a game of chess, and I will explain what I was doing as far as how I was sharing things through social media that would understandably make law enforcement, military upset with me, which would ultimately probably get you guys, agitate you guys enough to fuck with me for one, and then not necessarily have my back as you might now. Like, I was playing a game at the time, during that whole period, I was playing a very deep game against the evil. And I intend to explain how I was playing that game, and then by the time I'm done sharing that, you're gonna, if you're not already aware, I'm sure you already are, you're going to see the game that I've been playing, and you're going to be like, right on, Brandon, good job. Like, that's fucking awesome. You know, that's what I hope. So, you know, anybody that I may have offended in the past, I've been playing against evil. You know, if you consider yourself a good guy a supporter, or you're kind of in the middle and you're not really sure about me right now, my goal has been to reveal the bad guys, their game. And in order to do that, I've had to learn what they're doing. I've had to learn their mindset. And part of that has involved having to try to understand their psychology. And that's kind of how I ended up in the situation that I ended up in. And just where it just kind of felt like everybody was against me. You know, both good and bad, felt like everybody was against me at a point in time. And that was the point. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get as many people's attention as I could. You know, leading up to my arrest, my goal was to get as many people's attention as possible in whatever capacity, whether they hated me, whether they liked me, or whether they're kind of in the middle one way or the other. It didn't matter, just as much attention on me as possible, because once I had reached a certain point, that's when I was going to step to the side and then just reveal the evil. Like, you guys, this is, now I'm here, I've got all your attention. You guys are just scared. You guys are scared shitless of me. You don't know what's going on with me. It's intentional. I'm playing a game, but now I'm just gonna, like, metaphorically step to the side. Here are the bad guys. This is what they're doing. Now I'm gonna teach you. And the only way that was possible for me was allowing myself to go so deep in this game, and then once the bad guys wanted to have me recruit me and pull me into their world, that's the moment I refused them and just took off. You know, I didn't run. I just entirely separated from them, cut contact from them as far as through my phone, but not on social media, because that was like a war that was just beginning. But I separated from them and just created as much space as possible, and that's when I just started sharing as much as I could. You guys, like, these are the bad guys. These are the real bad guys. And then that's ultimately when I got arrested, shortly after that. And since then, it's been another game where, you know, because I surrendered and, like, pretty much just allowed law enforcement to take me, I allowed them to take me kind of to save my own life, because I was only at 120 pounds I only weighed 120 pounds when they arrested me, so I was almost starving to death. By allowing them to take me and put me in their custody, even though it was jail, even though it was even though I'm in the pen, I'm essentially out of reach for other individuals to where they can't do other things to me. And me going inside jail, through the incarceration, through the judicial, through that whole process of being locked up for 12 months, that was a whole new series of me learning things. I pretty much needed to get locked up for a period of time so I could learn how things are operating from within the courtrooms, within the judicial system, the justice system, seeing how that operates, seeing how inmates are treated, seeing how guards treat inmates, how inmates treat guards, seeing the games and things that are taking place in the jail system, navigating through the whole thing, and then coming out of it and going through all that. It was all a learning experience, even though it was very difficult and there was a lot of trauma involved. It was something that I had to go through, and since that time, just keep learning more lessons, observing what's going on, and now here we are now, August 2024. Through it all, I'm ready to get everybody up to speed. And if you're one of my friends or supporters, this is your opportunity to, if depending on what you know and what you're aware of and what you're not aware of, this is your opportunity to hear the whole story as far as how I was seeing things through my perspective. And now that I've gone through all of this, I've had so much time to get my thoughts together, to get my, you know, I've had all this time to get my thoughts together and get my, like I said, I had PTSD. I've had time to get that taken care of, in the sense to where it's not really affecting my how I function throughout the day. I feel like I've overcome my PTSD. I still have, still have all the scars and stuff, and I still, like emotional and spiritual scars type thing, like experiences and memories and all that, and those will never go away. But as far as the trauma that I have endured through all the various things that I've encountered, I feel like the trauma has subsided, and I'll explain how I accomplished all this. But bottom line, before my arrest, when I was trying to explain to people what was going on, I was literally in a fight with people that were trying to kill me or kidnap me, capture me, any combination of that. And so my ability to communicate with you guys was not, I wasn't speaking as slow, I wasn't speaking as clear, I was kind of just jumping all over the place. But now I've had a lot of time to get my thoughts organized, and I feel like I can deliver the message the way it needs to, if that makes sense. So with all that said, I'm gonna continue from where I left off on the last video, from when I was speaking 2 days ago. It's pretty much, I'm not going to try to, once I get started on this, I'm going to try not to deviate away and talk about other, things that are happening now. I'm just going to, once we get going, I'm going to try to just stay consistent with it until we're up to current. Everything you've watched prior to this, I've kind of been talking about things I've done in the past, but also talking about things that are current. I'm just trying to get you familiarized with where I've been and where I'm at now, just so you can kind of read my mentality, read my personality, understand that, I don't know, it's up to you to figure it out. I feel like you know what I'm trying to communicate, so I don't really need to keep beating around the bush. Let me take a drink real quick. So we're gonna go back to January 2018. I told the last video I told you that I was on my second season hanging Christmas lights. The first half of the season was over, the first half of our season, which is the installation part of the season, and then the second half is takedown, where you take down all the lights. So we'd finished the first half, New Year's had come and gone, and then through the month of January, we took down as many lights as we could, but we did not get, between my crew and the owner and his stepson, everybody tried getting as much down as we could in the month of January, but we didn't get all of them down. Once February arrived, that's when the owner and his entire family, so the owner, his wife, their stepson, and their daughter, they all went to New Zealand. I told you that it was supposedly a business trip where the owner was giving a demonstration on how to install solar tube lighting for some business in New Zealand that was going to be doing the same thing. That's what he told me. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently all four of them went to New Zealand for a month, which is, that probably would have cost a lot of money to do all that. And then during that time frame, he had asked me, while they were gone, he had asked me to stay at their house. They didn't live in Redmond, they lived in Madras, and they asked me to stay at their house, and they take care of their dog and their chickens and ducks, and pretty much watch over their property. while they were gone, and I agreed to it. And Malaki came with me. So when it came down to when I actually went there, I went to their house I think like the day before they were flying out. So when I go to their house, they get me all oriented with everything in their house as far as, because this is February, so it's winter time. So they're showing me where all their wood, firewood is, where their wood pellets are for feeding the fireplace upstairs and downstairs. Just get me familiar with all the things that I would need to be comfortable there, as well as how much to feed the dog, how much to feed the chickens and ducks, all that whole thing. And then at some point, they ended up leaving, right? And then it was just me, Malaki, and one of their dog, which was I believe it was a black lab. And so Malaki always gets his exercise every morning and evening. Like I was always taking him for walks. So while I was there, I'd always include their dog and take both the dogs for walks. Take them out hiking. Drive them. Take both of them. Put them both in the van and drive somewhere and take them both on a short hike, a few mile hike. Initially, the first week or so it wasn't anything strange, but at the time, I had gotten my van, I had my dog. The owner and their family were going to be gone for a month, which gave me a month to plan out what I was going to do, because now that Christmas light season was over, I wanted to go on another road trip. I wanted to leave Oregon and go somewhere again for like a few months. Just go on a big drive somewhere in the van and take the dog and just do that for a while, kind of like a little mini vacation. And then eventually, once summer arrived, around May or so, I was planning on going back up to Montana. And so I can't remember when exactly I decided where I was going to go, but that was in my mind. While I was house sitting, I was going to start planning out where I wanted to go during the month of March and maybe the whole month of April, and then I would return back north. So that was in the works. At the same time, as far as my awareness of all the bad shit going on in the world, conspiracy stuff, things that are happening on the news, shootings, politics, economics, all this whole spectrum of instability, corruption, chaos that's occurring around the United States. I was pretty much aware of all this stuff, and I was kind of learning about different things, tuning into different things almost every single day. Whenever I had free time, I was usually on the internet researching anything, anything that would catch my eye. And when I say I research stuff, I'm not saying I believe everything I was learning. I always roll with this philosophy of learn everything, believe nothing. So it's when you're learning stuff on the internet and you're reading stuff, it's okay to learn about it, but again, you don't know who wrote. Say if you're reading an article, you don't know who wrote the article. You don't know their background. You don't know if they're pledged to something. You don't know if they've sold their soul and that's how they've got their occupation. You don't know anything about them. So whether or not it is a good someone that's writing honestly with good intentions, or it's somebody that's a shill that's writing a bunch of nonsense, it doesn't really matter. The thing is, whatever you're reading, take it all with a grain of salt. Read it and decide for yourself. Use your intuition, gut feeling, and when you learn something, do additional research on it and see if there's anything else out there that can support or back up the original claim or original belief or whatever this person's saying. See if there's anything else out there that can back it up, or if you have any of your own real world experiences that could confirm or deny what somebody's saying. I think you understand where I'm going with this. So back in February 2018, like I mentioned in the other episode, my Instagram account had been deleted, and it had been deleted as a product of sharing my thoughts and opinions and perspectives on things happening around the world. That was why my account had been stolen, hacked, and eventually deleted. And I said that there was probably about three months or so where I didn't share anything on social media after that because I was just kind of mad. But at some point, I created another Instagram account. And initially, I was just sharing my photography again, but I wasn't really sharing it with any kind of passion. I was just sharing some of my photos, seeing if any of my previous subscribers, followers would find my page again. You know, kind of try and get back what I lost, but I didn't really have much heart in it. I didn't really care. But once we reached February, that's when things were really kind of just all over the board. As far as social media and mainstream media, there was just so much chaos on the news. And a lot of the stuff I was seeing on the news, I didn't necessarily believe it was true. It almost seemed like propaganda, lies, things to manipulate the viewers to perceive reality in a way that's not accurate. I forget when the Las Vegas shooting took place. I think it was like November that previous year, November 2017 or December 2017, where there was that supposed gunman that opened fire from the hotel window and shot all those people down at that concert. Well, I had done my own research when that event occurred. I had done my own research on that shooting, and I was, as far as I'm concerned, what we were told by the media is not what happened. I had actually found footage of, I think I still even have it on my computer, but footage of a gunman in the crowd, you know, when that shooting was taking place in Las Vegas at that concert. I saw a video of someone in the crowd with like an AR-15 or some type of rifle, you know, automatic rifle, and he just sprayed the entire crowd. Someone had their cell phone camera, so they're recording the chaos, and then all of a sudden this guy pops up on the screen, on the corner screen, and it's really quick, but you can see him raise his gun, and he just goes like this into the crowd, and then you can hear the gunshots, and then the camera like kind of dips down, and then it ends. So you can't really see what happens right after that, but it's like a 2-second window where you can just see this thing happen. And then from other research I found out, I heard that there were black helicopters flying around that concert area, and they were putting soldiers, you know, they were putting shooters on top of rooftops, whether it was sniper rifles or whatever, but they had people up on top of the hotel rooftop shooting down into the crowd too. You know, that's what I learned. At the time, there was a whole bunch of videos and stuff that showed these different perspectives, but at some point, all of that stuff got wiped off. You know, it all got removed from YouTube. It all got removed from other places. So you could never find that footage anymore. It all got scrubbed, as if there were people out there that didn't want the general public to know what actually happened. So that was just one thing, you know, that I'm talking about as far as chaos occurring around the United States, and then it reaching the mainstream media, and then everything gets blown into just a big lie after lie after lie, and then after these lies are made, new laws and policies and things are created as a product of it. You know, it's called order out of chaos, problem, reaction, solution. You know, whoever was running that operation in Las Vegas, they had intentions. They created a problem. They waited for everybody to react, and then they already had a solution waiting for what they did. And I think after that happened, I think the amount of security that was installed around Las Vegas, as far as casinos, like metal detectors and all that type of stuff being installed at the entrances and exits at casinos and stuff. I know all kinds of things took place after that whole ordeal. I don't know exactly what happened. I learned you had the mainstream media's narrative, and then you had a different narrative as far as what you could find on the internet, hearing about the fact that there was a whole bunch of shooters in all different positions just shooting people in the crowd. And then you learn another perspective about hearing about crisis actors and false flag and all that stuff. So these are all different things I'm learning about, right? And that's just one topic. The Las Vegas shooting is just one subject. And once we reached February, that's when, for some reason, when I'm looking at Facebook, when I'm just browsing Facebook or Instagram, and I'm looking at what other people are sharing and what other people are talking about, from what I had concluded, not many people were sharing the perspectives that I was learning. The only thing I was hearing was people regurgitating what they were learning from mainstream media, but there wasn't anybody talking about this other perspectives or alternatives, at least not how I saw it. And I was like, are people really just this blind? Are people this blind? Are they ignorant? Are they hypnotized? Are they brainwashed? Are they being forced to say what they're saying? Are they too scared to say the truth? I don't know, but the fact that nobody's really talking about these other perspectives that I had come across and how I viewed how it could very well be possible how certain things are playing out, but that's not what the mainstream media is telling us. I could see this other thing taking place, and to me it was obvious. Take a drink again. Got 3 minutes. So here we are, February 2018, and I'm just starting to stay at house sit for a month. And that's when I decided that, just considering everything I had gone through in the past, Hawaii, Colorado, family dynamics, I just kind of didn't really care anymore. Oh yeah, and then my Instagram account having been stolen from me, so I just didn't. At that point, I just didn't really care anymore. I had a pretty bitter attitude just towards people in general. Just, I don't know. People were just, at that time, people were kind of just really irritating me, because all these things that I had learned, I still, other than Grant, hadn't been able to talk to anybody about anything that I had learned, which was really weird. Everybody would just kind of treat me off. I don't know. Maybe people noticed a change in me and people were just kind of keeping their distance. I don't know. Maybe there was a deeper game taking place and I was being treated the way I was because people were being told to. I don't know. I don't have these answers. But once February of 2018 rolled around, I just didn't care anymore in the sense of what people thought about me. I just didn't care. If people think I'm a nut, think I'm weird because I believe certain things, I don't care anymore. So I just kind of, at some point, I just flipped this switch in the sense of, I'm going to use Instagram rather than photography. I'm going to use Instagram to share everything that I have learned. Okay? I'm going to stop real quick and reset the clock. It's okay, buddy. Wait, let me check that again. Just double check. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so I'm like, I'm going to use Instagram to just be an outlet to share everything that I have learned so far. And I'm going to use it in a way where I'm not going to try and prove anything to anybody. I'm just going to, is everything that I have learned, I'm going to try and find memes and photos, like real pictures, and I'm going to try and put together a collage or a puzzle or a giant big picture where after a period of time, people can look through all of everything I've shared and they can connect all the dots for themselves. I'm going to share perspectives that people may have never heard of before, or they may have never thought about before, and just open those doors and allow people to explore these different perspectives as opposed to only hearing one side of the coin, if that makes sense. And I was like, I don't care if anybody calls me a conspiracy theorist. I don't care if anybody calls me crazy or delusional or anything. It doesn't really matter, because from my shoes, I can understand the big game. I can already see this good versus evil, and that not everybody that's on social media is a good person. That there's, Grant even told me, he told me about shills, people that are paid to spread disinformation on the internet, and not only spread disinformation within their own account names, just sharing information that's wrong, but they'll go to other people's pages, people that are trying to share the truth or trying to talk about real things that are happening. But then these shills will come into other people's pages and enter their messaging threads, and they'll just start trolling people or accusing the account owner of being crazy or delusional or any kind of negative label as a way to discredit the person and get their community to turn against them, not subscribe to them, not take any of this stuff serious, second guess the things that they've learned, any combination of this stuff. But the overall goal is just for the shills and the bad people, is to, A, to stop allowing the truth to spread, and B, to create division amongst this truth community, where if they can create division where you have people that are seeking the truth and then they're being told that these are all lies and all this stuff, and to stop following his path, and try to scare them, threaten them, whatever, but just to create division to where even the people that are speaking the truth, they're fighting amongst each other or unsubscribing for each other, to where everybody's pretty much just out on their own. And even if they do know what's going on, they don't really have anybody to talk to, because all this trust has been severed, it's been destroyed. That's how I saw things anyways. I could see it plain as day. And I had already experienced some things that were just really fucked up. The fact that somebody had already tried murdering me, and I was still living with that experience, and have nobody to talk to about it. Apparently nobody that I could go to try and get type of resolution or justice or answers as far as what happened that night. If they really did try poisoning me, well, that's a crime. And whoever's involved, they should be locked up for attempted murder. That's a pretty big deal. It's not something that they should just be able to walk away from. Like, oh, I guess Brandon survived. Okay, and he's off now. And okay, he doesn't know we did it, so we can just pretend it never happened, But for my shoes, it's like, no, somebody just did that to me. Whoever did it, you should be in prison, And then everything that's happened since then. Anybody that's done really bad things to me, stolen my hacked my email account, stole my Instagram, that's crime. Should be in prison. All kinds of stuff, man. That's funny. There's a road to my left about 120 yards, and there's a van driving really slow up the road, and he has his sliding door open, so the people, whoever's in the back, they can see me really well. And I don't know if they have a camera pointed at me as they're driving, but the sliding passenger door is wide open as they're driving the road facing me. Interesting, but whatever. Another vehicle. I don't really worry about these things. If they have bad intentions and they're up here and they have bad intentions, they'll pay for it at some point. But if they're friends and they're up here and they see me and they're just having a look, cool, no biggie. If they're neutral people, just people up here looking at the scenery, not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. But I'm just aware of that, There's people that know who I am, and some people know where I go because they have the ability to keep track of me. And so it's not uncommon when I see people, when I'm way out in the woods or mountain, when I come across people that know who I am, like, they're there for a reason, just keeping tabs on me, make sure I'm safe and all that. But I kind of just deviate. Oh, now the van turned around. Now they're going back down the road. It's pretty funny. All right, so continuing forward. So I started using, February 2018. I just said, fuck it. I'm gonna share what I know. Now they're backing up, and now they're stopped. That's funny. Now they're backing up more. You know, this kind of thing that distracts me. You know, I'm not worried about it, but it's distracting. Having somebody just doing something kind of weird within my peripheral vision, it's distracting. And now they're just stopped. Now they're getting out of the car. Okay. Now they're all getting out of the vehicle. There's 4 of them. Now they're all standing there looking at me. 5 of them. It's like a whole family, and they all got, oh, one of them's got binoculars. They're all just standing there like they're staring at me while I'm sitting here. Oh, here comes ATVs, 4 of them. Oh, like a big party. I don't know, should I turn the camera? Show you what I'm talking about? It's lucky. Let's see. Where are they at? Yeah, you know, I see you guys. Anyways, I'm gonna turn this back. I don't really care. I'm just saying I got you guys, if that's... I'm gonna restart the video. Again. I don't care. Oh, buddy. Oh, you're so cute. So once I made that decision on Instagram to just start sharing, I pretty much just unloaded. I just got on the internet and I just started searching as many subjects that I had done research on, you know, chemtrails, flat earth, mud flood, ancient trees like the giant silicon trees or silica trees. You know, kind of like, I don't know if you've heard about it, but there's if you research the mud flood, giant mud fossils and giant silica trees, where they're used, you know, if you've watched the movie Avatar, there's that the giant tree that's like thousands of feet tall. If you remember the tree. Supposedly, in this reality, a long time ago, those types of trees existed in this realm, where there were trees that were thousands of feet tall, but something happened, some type of cataclysm happened. You know, something biblical or whatever happened where all those trees got chopped down, and today they're as far as what we know as like a mesa, or some like say the Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Like that's if you've never heard of it, look up the Devil's Tower, Wyoming. But if you have heard of it, you know what I'm talking about. But supposedly the Devil's Tower is a tree stump. If you go to Monument Valley in what is that, northwest or northeast Arizona, southeast Arizona, Monument Valley, some of those rock formations are tree stumps. They're not rocks. It's a petrified tree. Same with Sedona, Arizona. There's all these rocks and everything that, well, they look like rocks, but they're petrified. They used to be giant, multi-thousand-foot trees. Even things that we might perceive as mountains might be tree stumps. You know, if you just think about, if you can adjust your perspective a little bit and imagine if you're an ant, you know, think if you're an ant, how big like a thing of grass looks to you. How big is a tree in the perspective of an ant? But what if you could change that a little bit to where we're the ants and there used to be trees that are the same ratio of size difference, to where, like, say in our, as how you see a tree, a tree's pretty big, but to an ant, a tree would be like thousands of feet tall if you were to just adjust those ratios. But it was like the same thing for like humans, where a long time ago we used to have trees that were thousands of feet tall, and then there was at some point things happened where those trees all got cut down, and then another thing happened to where there was a giant mud flood, a flood that, if you think about Noah's Ark or whatever, where do these stories come from? How old are they? Who knows? History's been rewritten so many times and changed that we don't even really know what our real history is. But there was a mud flood, and civilizations and technology and things got completely wiped out. You go down to southwest Utah. It's like it's another world down there. Grand Canyon area, Monument Valley, Arches National Park, Moab, Grand Staircase Escalante. Like, that's a whole different world and reality down there. And if you learn about the mud flood and petrified ancient trees, giant trees, and you go down there after doing your research, you can see these tree stumps with your own eyes. You're just like, holy shit, it really might be. And then you can see what might look like an ancient civilization that used to exist, but now it's just like, it looks like it's just been coated with mud, and then it's been sunbaked. So what we view as sandstone or limestone, this really brittle rock, what if it's just some type of mud that's been petrified for hundreds of years? And I don't know. I have been down to these areas of the country, Utah and Arizona. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've seen the tree stumps, and I've seen these ancient civilizations. It's like, holy fuck, it's right in front of our face. So what I just said, that I had not seen that yet, but I had learned about it through the internet. And so, I was sharing all this stuff, talking about chemtrails, talking about geoengineering, talking about weather modification and the patents behind the technology that drives all this weather modification, talking about how all of our food has been filled with poisonous ingredients that affect our health over a long term. Talking about the medical industry, the financial, the Federal Reserve System, national debt. I just share everything I could on YouTube, and then I also talked about conspiracies and false flags and crisis actors and all that, all kinds of stuff. And I was just dumping it on Instagram. It's back in that day, it was the etiquette. The Instagram etiquette is like, okay, you only share like 1 or 2 pictures per day. That way you're not, whoever's subscribed to you, you're not flooding their pages and stuff. And that's how people were operating. Any given account on Instagram, people were only sharing like 1 or 2 pictures per day. Well, when I entered that arena, I said, screw the etiquette. People can subscribe to my page if they want to, or they can unsubscribe to my page if they want to, but I'm going to share what I've learned so far. I'm going to share it. Doesn't matter. People don't like it, too bad. If they like it, just go tell your friends, have them subscribe, and everybody's here to learn. And I just started dumping information onto Instagram. I was like, I think at some point I was sharing like 100 or 200 posts per day, just 100 different pictures or in a single given day, just as much as I could share. And when I first started doing this, I might have had like 100 followers that had found my page after I created this new account. But once I started sharing all of this stuff, suddenly I was getting so many people subscribing to my page. I think within a couple weeks I had over 1,000 people that had subscribed to my page. I can't really remember how fast my subscriber follower count was jumping. I didn't care about that. I was just for me, seeing that number increase at such a drastic rate, all I cared about is that, okay, I'm getting a larger audience of people that are tuning in to the message. But I think, by the end of the month, I think I had I might not be accurate. I don't have any way to confirm it or not confirm it, but I think I had, close, maybe a little over 2,000 people subscribe to my page in about a month's time. And when that was happening, all of a sudden I was having people sending me all kinds of messages encouraging me and saying they're happy that I'm sharing all this, as if they knew who I was, and they were just kind of, now that I'm stepping into this arena and sharing what I am, they're just like, get it, Brandon, good job, telling me they like everything that I was sharing. And then I had other people who were giving me more information. When I was talking about stuff, I had people come in and then they would enlighten me with more things that I didn't even know about. They would pass on articles or other things that I hadn't yet stumbled upon. So that broadened my own learning. So all of a sudden there's just this community of people that were supposedly aware of some of this stuff, and all of a sudden we're just starting to talk amongst each other about things that are going on. But at the same time, I'm also starting to get weird messages of people calling me, a conspiracy theorist or delusional or crazy and stuff, and I just kind of brush all of them off because I'm aware of this opposing side. But it was persistent. People I had a lot of positive reinforcement, people encouraging me to keep going, and then there was this other side that was just trying to play me against my own mind to make me feel like maybe the things I am sharing are not accurate, when it wasn't really working, because every time I was just pushing them off. So as this was happening, this is when things really start getting strange, as far as while I'm house sitting at the owner of the Christmas lights house. They're out at New Zealand and I'm on my own, and now that I'm sharing all this stuff about the world, I'm creating a lot of unwanted attention, because if some of these bad things are true, or all of these bad things are true, that means that there's bad people out there that are doing it, right? And if they're doing it, they're not going to want people talking about it, okay? They don't want, if you become aware of it, they don't want people who become aware of it to share this knowledge with people who are not aware of it, because that exposes their game and puts them at risk for being exposed for various crimes that they've committed, which puts them at risk of getting caught and locked up or shot, arrested or whatever. And that's what I was doing. I made myself a target by sharing all of this stuff. But at that point, I was willing to take that risk for whatever reason. I wasn't afraid to step into that spotlight and have that unwanted attention on me. For whatever reason, I wasn't afraid. I only got 30 seconds left. I'm going to have to start the clock over. Alright. There's another vehicle. Pull up the road really slow, looking out his window, staring at me. And then all of a sudden he's got to stop and back up and get out of his truck. It's okay. Yeah, so where was I at? Sorry, I'm just kind of blinking. Because again, anytime the vehicles are stopping over there, it's creating distractions. Yeah, I gotta stop again and just blink this. Yeah. Yeah, so when I started doing this, sharing all this information and making myself a target to the bad people, to those who are doing all of these things, it actually created real world consequences for me, where they started fucking with me in different ways. And within like my second week, by the second week of house sitting there, there were times when I was sharing specific topics, talking about specific things on YouTube. And then at some point, I started getting random text messages. Text, like nothing to do with social media, nothing to do with the app, nothing to do with the Instagram application. I'm talking about text messages. I was getting text messages from incomplete numbers. It was only like 5-digit phone numbers. And the messages that I were getting were personalized towards me. They weren't spam. They were written to me, and they were the messages were written about things that I had shared on Instagram, and they were threatening. They were kind of threatening and kind of mocking me at the same time. Just kind of mocking me for some of the things that I had shared. Whether or not some of the things that I shared were true or not, I'd made that clear as far as Instagram. I'm sharing these things because they're out there. They're out there and they're getting passed around. And I'm sharing them to make you aware, and it's up to, whoever you are as far as a subscriber or follower, it's entirely up to you to do your research and figure it out for yourself. That's part of this information war. Whatever's getting passed around on the internet, if you've come across it, you have to think for yourself and find the truth for yourself. So sometimes when I was sharing things on Instagram, it wasn't necessarily something I entirely believed, but it was something that was being passed around, and I'm making it known so people can go look it up and figure it out. That's why sometimes I say it's not. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. It's like sometimes there is an idea or something floating around as far as the general population, the public. There's some type of information being passed around, and sometimes this information is not true. That's why you can't always believe what you hear, even from people. Even if your friend's telling you something that they heard, it's up to you to go figure out the truth for yourself. You can't always believe what somebody says because they may have been lied to and they're just repeating a lie. If all that makes sense. But I was getting these text messages from incomplete numbers, and and they were just mocking me or making threats as far as what I was sharing on social media. And I don't believe I messaged them back. I may have replied just like a sarcastic, snarky answer. Just kind of like a fuck you kind of thing. And if whatever the case, these text messages continued for like a month. It went on all the way until I left Oregon and started heading south for my road trip. Those ATVs again. I started going like when I left Oregon, went on my road trip for a couple months. The text messages continued all the way until I left Oregon, and I'm gonna explain all this, like how it progressed. But aside from the text messages, there was 2 very strange incidents that occurred during like the second and third week of house sitting, maybe the third and fourth week, but it was just 2 instances. But the first one was once it had been bedtime, gotten to bedtime, it was nighttime, and I went to bed. The owner had me sleeping, like their house was two stories, like they had the upstairs and then they had like a base, like a lower floor that was kind of like a basement level floor, because their house was kind of like on a hillside. And I was sleeping in their downstairs. They had a spare bedroom in their downstairs, and that's where they had me staying for that month, where I could sleep for the month. So that night, before going to bed, I locked all the doors upstairs. I deadbolted the front door and locked the back door, and made sure the house was secured and stuff. And then I went to bed, right? And then I went to sleep. And then at some point in the middle of the night, maybe 1 or 2 in the morning. I wake up to the sound of Malaki. He's upstairs and he's just howling. He's just howling nonstop. Ooh, ooh, you know. And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? So I get up really quick and I run upstairs, and the front door is wide open. Just complete. It's dark out. It's February, and the door is just wide open. And I'm like, what the hell? This is after I've gotten text messages. So how did the door open when I had it deadbolted? And then there's nobody around that I can see, and Malaki's just sitting at the door howling. And then the owner's dog that I was also taking care of, he was still in the house. He hadn't run off or anything, but the door was open, and that really creeped me out. So I close it, lock up again, weirded out. Eventually, I ended up going back to bed, and then I don't know, a few days later, maybe in the same week, but not consecutive nights. It was maybe a few days later, maybe a week later or so. There was another night when I went to bed, because after that happened, I was still sharing things on Instagram. I was sharing things on Instagram from that point forward. That was the beginning of when I really started going off on Instagram. And that continued all the way until September 2019 when I was arrested. So February of 2018 all the way till September 2019, that's the duration that I was using Instagram to share everything that I had been learning. So where I'm talking about now, this is the beginning of that journey, this part of the story. So I did not slow down on what I was sharing after finding that door open. The next day I just kept sharing, and then the day after that I kept sharing, until eventually within the week, there was another night when I went back to bed, fell asleep that night, all the doors were locked, and then I woke up to Malaki howling again upstairs, and I'm like, what the hell? I run upstairs, and it's the back door that's wide open this time. What the fuck? I had it all locked up, and now the back door is wide open, as if somebody's just trolling me, just messing with me, as a product of things that I've been talking about on social media. That's weird. That just completely weirded me out between that and the text messages. Apparently I have somebody's attention, and they're just trying to, scare me or get in my head or whatever. But that did not discourage me from what I was intending to do. I'm just shaking, as far as what I was doing on social media. It's like I'm shaking the foundation of everything. It's like, you guys, I'm breaking the etiquette. I'm sharing all this stuff we're not supposed to talk about. And all these people are just getting agitated about it, but I didn't care. And that's been my perception even to this day. All this stuff that I'm talking about, there are people that don't want me talking about any of this. And then there are people that have no idea about what I'm talking about, and my goal is to wake them up. So it's just like shaking people. Imagine if you're sleepy and I just grab you by the shoulders and start shaking. Just like, wake up, dude. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. The bad guys have you under a spell. Wake up, wake up, wake up. That's essentially what I'm trying to do, talking about all this stuff. They have everybody sedated, hypnotized, distracted, consumed with money, consumed with their jobs and careers, and told that you're never allowed to ask questions, and you're never allowed to challenge those who have appointed themselves your leaders or electees or whatever. That's bullshit. You guys, let's wake up to the truth. Kick out all these people that are lying and corrupted and all that stuff, and let's, we need to fix things, because as a society, as a general population, as a world population, we're quickly going downhill. If we don't do something about what's going on and don't address all these issues, like what the source of our problems, where it's all coming from, we're just going to keep going down, 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 until eventually everything's lost and there's no coming back. That's something I've seen for a long time, and my Instagram page has been, back then, my Instagram page was an attempt to try to get people to start looking at the big picture. However I could do it. That was my first attempt at trying. And then it would progress and evolve. as this month was going on, these are just things that are happening, and there's a whole bunch of other variables to consider. I can only talk about one thing at a time, but there's also a whole bunch of other stuff happening at the same time. I mentioned that once the month of February ended, when the owner of the Christmas light company and his family came back to Oregon, that was when I was going to go on my trip. I mentioned that. And so during that time, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go. And because I had learned about the mud flood and giant mud fossils and the giant silica trees, I wanted to go, and I had learned about where you could find some of these things. And the Southwest United States, I mentioned it, like you got Sedona, Arizona, Grand Canyon, Moab, Arches National Park, Canyonlands. All of that was a pretty good area to go look at this stuff. And so I had been down there before, when I went on my 6-month road trip after quitting Costco, when I drove across the United States and back. If you watched episode 1, Welcome to the Rabbit Hole, you've seen some of those pictures. But when I went there that first time, I didn't know about any of this stuff. So when I was there, the things I was looking at, I didn't know what I was looking at. I just perceived, at the time, I perceived everything down in that area was a product of a long period of erosion and weather and all kinds of stuff. And all that stuff was carved out naturally. And it had nothing to do with some type of worldwide cataclysm. But now that I learned about that stuff, I wanted to go back down there and see it. And so at some point during this month of February, when I was figuring out where I was going to go, I decided I was going to drive from, this wasn't even accounting, I wasn't even planning on Las Vegas when I was planning this. But I was planning on driving from Oregon down to southeast Oregon, through most of Nevada, then to Flagstaff, Arizona, and then I would go directly south into Sedona, Arizona. And then once I made it to Sedona, I would stay there for a couple weeks probably, and I'd do a whole bunch of hiking with Malaki, and we would check out these giant petrified tree stumps, and these mesas that were giant tree stumps. When you think of a mesa, it's just like a giant plateau, where it looks like a big cliff and a big rock formation, and then once you get above the cliff, it's just flat. It looks like a giant plateau, or if you look up what a mesa is, some of those are just tree stumps. So, and if you adjust your perspective and imagine yourself as an ant, it's totally possible. If you've seen the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, it would you just gotta adjust your perspective. If you made yourself small and imagine everything's really big, what if if we're the size of ants and we look at trees, what if trees are like blades of grass, and there used to be, what I'm calling tree stumps, those used to be trees. If that makes sense. You're gonna have to research this stuff yourself. But that's this perspective and this idea I had learned, and I wanted to go down to the southwest part of the United States and see this stuff and try and confirm it for myself and see if it was true. So I was planning on driving from Oregon down to Sedona, Arizona, spend some time there, and then I'd drive from Sedona up to the Grand Canyon, and then from the Grand Canyon I'd go to Monument Valley, and from Monument Valley I would go to Moab, and then Arches National Park, and then Zion National Park, and then at some point I probably might go up north into Salt Lake City, and then maybe over to Colorado. Like, I was planning this 2-month trip in this section of the United States, and I wanted to see this stuff. Las Vegas wasn't even in the picture, okay? At that time, didn't even consider it. It wasn't even on the table. So you might be wondering now, well, how did you end up in Las Vegas? Well, let's see. I've been speaking for a while, and if I start talking about it now, then that's the next huge discussion, and I need to take a break. So I'm just going to stop the camera now, probably reposition, maybe go find some shade, and then eventually I'll continue. So yeah, like I said, this is going to be a very long story, and I've been speaking for a while, and I haven't even finished the month of February. there's all these things that you need to know about that explains how DMT in Las Vegas even came into the equation. It's something that you aren't even going to expect once I start talking about it, and that's what I'm going to be getting into is on this next video. So that's what you can look forward to. I guess I will just wrap this up as if I'm concluding the video, and then we'll see you next time. So have a good day.